Merton theory of anomie. Introduction. Dear students, in this topic we are going to learn about Merton's theory of anomie. Do you know who Merton is? Robert King Merton was an American sociologist of the last century. He was interested in the interactions and importance between social and cultural structures and science, carried out extensive research into the sociology of science. Merton's theory on deviance stems from this 1938 analysis of the relationship between culture, structure, and anomie. He defines culture as an organized set of normative values governing behavior which is common to members of designated society or group. Social structures are the organized set of social relationships in which members of the society or group variously implicated. Anomie, the state of normalness, arises when there is an acute disjunction between the cultural norms and goals and the socially structured capacities of members of the group to act in accordance with them. That means if someone is behaving strangely and not like the normal human beings. Merton was heavily influenced by Talcott Parsons and has several publications like The Sociology of Science 1973, Sociological Ambivalence 1976, and all, to name a few. Let us now understand what the anomie theory advanced by Robert Merton states. Social structures within society may pressure citizens to deviance from the normal morale and involve into crime. Also termed strain theory, Robert Merton's strain anomie theory has advanced following work of Emmy Durkheim. In Durkheim's usage, anomie referred to a situation in which cultural norms break down because of rapid change. Anomie theory. Let us first understand what anomie means. According to Merton, anomie means a situation in which societies inadvertently bring to bear pressure or strain or individuals that can lead to rule-breaking behavior. This pressure or strain, if you will, is caused by the discrepancy between culturally defined goals and the institutionalized means available to achieve these goals. For example, if a small boy, a son of an accused, is always blamed as a thief, it creates pressure on the boy and he eventually gets engaged in a criminal behavior. He accepts the socially recognized goals of society but rejects the legitimate means to achieve these goals. Anomie is a state of being, as it would be experienced by an individual. For example, if one feels depressed because of hopelessness or someone has been fired from his job, it would bring anomie. Merton identifies 5 modes of adaptation: conformity, innovation, retreatism, ritualism, and rebellion. Robert Merton wrote the first version of the article in 1940. He started with addressing biological explanations of deviance and then concluded that biology is not the reason for variations from one society to the next, both in the nature and extent of deviance. He primarily analyzes the rate of deviation in different societies and for different subgroups within a single society, but not the reason for deviation. Merton works within the overall functionalist perspective that emphasizes more on the role of culture, particularly its unifying aspects. He refers to Durkheim, a pioneer in anomie, to analyze situations where culture creates deviance and disunity. Merton changes the concept slightly, referring to a situation in which there is an apparent lack of fit between goals and norms. Goals are culture's norm about that constitutes success in life. Goals and means are the culture's norms about the appropriate ways to achieve these goals. In modern times, success is probably rated more highly than virtue. Merton's formulated anomies as the explanation for high rates of deviant behavior in the US compared with other societies, and an explanation for the distribution of deviant behavior across groups defined by class, race, ethnicity. Students, please note that Merton's analysis is aimed at why a particular individual has deviated from not the other one. Merton is aware of the weakness of his analysis, that is, typology is designed to allow the variation individual level. His analysis is not that very individual exposed to the similar cultural conflicts reacts the same way. Merton's 5 reactions to anomie. Conformity. Even in societies dominated by anomie, compliance with standards, rules, and laws is common. Conformists are people who are capable and willing to adhere to societal norms. They desire success and wealth. They are capable to pursue an education and maintain well-paid jobs. According to Merton, the majority of the people in the society fall into this category, and thus society is able to remain stable. If the majority of the people in the society do not conform, it would ultimately disintegrate and would thus lead to anomie. Innovation. If someone is having structural stress induced by the non-achievement of cultural goals, the most common form of adaptation is innovation. Innovation happens when individuals accept the society's norms and goals, but are either unable or unwilling to attain them by means of legitimate channels. This would consequently lead to the introduction of new methods, ideas, or products which effectively reconstruct established norms. Out of Merton's 5 reactions, innovation is most commonly connected or associated with criminal behavior. Ritualism. People who embrace institutionalized rules and ceremonies but yet lack the enthusiasm and commitment to pursue cultural goals are called ritualists. They have abandoned hopes of improvement or success. The regular practice of ritual activities, especially excessively or without regard to its functions, are typical of ritualism. Since they don't actively pursue goals, ritualists are probably the least likely to become involved in criminal behavior. They prefer the safe approach to life and are comfortable to settle for mediocrity. Retreatism. Have you ever seen a psychotic or psychoneurotic or a chronic drunkard? Do you now understand that they are anomies? They are the social dropouts with neither a desire to succeed nor to abide by societic norms to degree. They are in the society but not of and would include psychotic, psychoneurotics, chronic autists, pariahs, outcasts, vagrants, vagabonds, tramps, chronic drunkards, and drug addicts. Severely disadvantaged minority groups also form part of this group. Rebellion. Rebellious people perform acts of destruction and violence, resistance to or open outright rejection of the established system. They form their own subculture with their own set of values and rules. The important difference between this group and the others is their inherently violent nature of their resistance to conformity. Can you guess the outcome of this group's behavior? This group not only discards the societal norms entirely, but it actively substituted with a new ideology. Destruction of property, acts of terror, murders, and so forth are few to name. These tactics are employed in order to achieve their objectives, and they aim to destroy the basis of that society's culture. These include extremist groups such as terrorists, freedom fighters, and political revolutionaries who employ subversive and manipulative acts of violence in order to achieve their goals. Anomie theory in education. Shall we apply the theory of anomie in education? Fine. Let me give you some professions or courses and you tell me which one would you be chosen by girls and which one by boys. Nursing, teaching, pilot, bomb squad. As we all guess, nursing and teaching courses will be taken by girls and a pilot or bomb squad is associated with boys. The anomie theory examines sociology of education and looks at examining differences between girls and boys to illustrate various outcomes of the hidden curriculum. The focus has moved away from educational performance to a less apparent manifestation of the hidden curriculum, gendered curriculum. Males and females are encouraged to study different subjects. Some subjects are seen as male subjects and vice versa. These are also some which are seen as neutral subjects. Over the past 100 years, explicit curriculum differences have been progressively eliminated. Taylor et al. Noted. 1902 Education Act made domestic subjects such as cookery and needlework compulsory for girls but not for boys. During the 20th century, the tradition of girls doing home economics and boys doing woodwork and metalwork has been largely replaced by technology for all pupils. Girls, though perform equivalent to boys academically, tend to avoid certain subjects. Every society had defined certain norms for the behavior and education of girls. In this socialization process, they are being taught that they are equal to boys and the eventual achievement will be on a merit. We should realize that girls are not directly discriminated against, but passively subdued in the form of gender discrimination. The primary socialization imposed by family has taught them that there are some areas of social world which are not considered to be feminine. Then comes the conflict. Now, a situation of anomie is created. Conflict over role, expectations, and the ideology that surrounds male and female roles. Examples of this are, when a girl is young and is studying in school, she is expected to try her best and excel academically. But on the contrary, as a female, girls are not expected to try to enter areas of the curriculum associated with masculine gender characteristics. Thus, girls generate a conflict between the lessons learned from primary socialization and the secondary socialization. If the areas of work which are off limits defined by the primary socialization are to be studied, then they would be considered unfeminine. As most of the girls do not want to be called unfeminine, they avoid certain subjects which are classified as masculine. Instead, they opt for feminine subjects or socially neutral. This gendered curriculum leads to segregation of girls and boys within a school. Also, it channels females into a relatively narrow range of occupations for their future, like teaching, nursing, and social work. Another female gendered subjects are sociology, psychology. They are seen as easier and hence feminine. Alternatively, association of these subjects with social science and social work, nursing, teaching, and so forth might also explain the gendering of these subjects. These careers are still highly gendered in our society. In higher education, students have the freedom to pick up the subjects to study. Here, the anomie theory does not seem to offer an explanation to the process of the curriculum becoming gendered. From the above explanations, we can understand that the anomie theory relates events in the wider world, work, general socialization of males and females, work, general socialization of males and females, the individual choices they make, and shows how these wider social structures influence such choices. The anomie theory can be used to explain why patterns of gendered subjects develop. Merton's personal adoptions to theory. All the sociologists and criminologists tend to explain the root cause of an issue of topic. Interested in explaining the same, however, he differs from the point that crime and deviance arise from individual causes, such as a biological defect. He argued that certain groups participate in criminal behavior because from their perspective, they are responding normally to the social situation in which they find themselves. His strain theory, which talks about the 5 personal adaptations to anomie, is an enhancement of the earlier sociological theory of anomie posed by Emile Durkheim. Now, what do you think of anomie? It is a sort of psychological state of confusion. Now, what do you think of anomie? It is a sort of psychological state of confusion in which an individual goes through a conflict between the prescribed and commonplace social goals and the culturally acceptable, legitimate ways to pursue those goals. Every human being is encouraged to display gentle individualism to achieve economic and material success. However, opportunities for advancement and goal attainment are not equally accessible. According to Merton, crime and deviance are caused by an imbalance in social order. Individuals utilize the most efficient and convenient means, including crime, to achieve their goals. This imbalance, in which few individuals, particularly those of the lower and lower middle social classes, are disadvantaged and they don't find acceptable ways to reach their goals, this leads to strain. What will happen to an individual or a group when they struggle to attain the common cultural goals, particularly when they have restricted means and access only to very few legitimate channels? Merton argues that they would be subject to a particular pressure which will lead them to considerable strain, and they would adapt in any one of the possible ways. Merton believed that one of the outcomes of anomie is criminal behavior, which could be categorized as innovative. Innovators are people who continue to go behind monetary and material success as a worthy goal but not in legitimate ways. They want to achieve success, but they don't care about which process they adapt to achieve the success. This would explain to us why we read different kinds of cheating that happens in our world. Criminals are more knowledgeable and innovative, and they seek to find new ways to achieve success. People who work in large agencies like governments, example, bureaucrats and administrators, are likely to display this ritualistic response, adapting their goals to match available possibilities for success. They are supposed to maintain conformity to socio-cultural norms and not to violate law. In general, ritualists are not seen as threat to the social or organizational structure. They get strained by the forced expectations to achieve social success through conventional and traditional avenues. So, certain set of people essentially give up. They give up both their obedience to cultural goals and to the social norms that dictate acceptable ways to reach success. Let us take another example. How would a homeless person and an individual who has been withdrawn, he is said to exhibit gratuitous reactions, that is, by surrendering the desire to attain culturally defined goals as well, and by retreating from activities, means to meet such ends. Critique of strain anomie theory. Merton's theory has been widely used in sociological theorization of crime today. But there are limitations to this theory of crime that have been identified. Albert Cohen, the first critic of this theory, addressed to the fact that there is an ample amount of crime, delinquent behavior that is non-utilitarian, malicious, and O'Grady 2011, which highlights that not all crimes are explicable using Merton's theory. Merton could explain crimes such as fraud and theft on the basis of innovation, but if some youth does crime only for social status rather than material acquisitions, the theory fails. Moreover, issues such as race and gender have not been addressed adequately. Have you heard about white-collar crime? In recent days, they are increased. Online theft, cheating people by educated persons in some of their innovative ways, all are examples. These have not been explained by this theorem. Another important critique is that it is based on making the best choice that fits the individual. This is fine for situations involving money, where a person commits crimes to fill a need, but it does not account for a criminal deviance, such as murder or rape. This theory has a focus on the lower class, where the ability to leave the means to succeed is limited, where the middle and upper class who commits crimes are not accounted. The most important criticism of Merton's theory is that it fails to explain why people react to strain differently. That is why, do people in almost identical situations or social situations differ in their reaction to the feelings of helplessness? Even after his death, the debate on Merton has continued. Among those who have pursued this anomie theory is the study of crime and delinquency. One of the major criticisms has been what truly constitutes legitimate means or opportunities. Does provision of equal opportunities actually limit crime rate? Another is perhaps on the concept of conformity as a requirement for a stable society. When observed as the extreme, conformity can be as deviant as nonconformity itself. Some societies, overconformity has become a mild form of deviance. Durkheim believed that identifying deviance is a demonstration of society's norms and a barometer of cohesion and change. Merton held that crime does not generate social solidarity or social progress, and that crime and deviance demonstrate poor societal organization. Merton suggests that society does not evolve from mechanical to organic, but this society is constantly changing and generating new goals, if not necessarily the means by which to achieve these goals. Durkheim and Merton also differ on when anomie occurs. Durkheim suggested that anomie is present during periods of social change due to the disruption of traditional bounds. However, Merton disagrees as he believes that anomie can be found in relatively stable societies. For Merton, transition was not from one specific type of social structure to another, but a constant state of flux with changing goals. Durkheim and Merton's theories differ most strongly on what constitutes the causes of anomie. Durkheim looks at anomie from a structural perspective, whereas Merton looks at the causes of anomie from both a macro and micro level, giving the theory a more detailed explanation. Merton looks in detail at the individual's response to societal strain, not discussed intensively in Durkheim, as his positivist ontology did not consider individuals' internal motives and drives unless their objective effects. Conclusion: Merton was an American sociologist who was very interested in and remained very passionate about throughout his career on sociological analysis of the relationship between culture, structure, and anomie. Merton was heavily influenced by Talcott Parsons, and he was influenced by Talcott Parsons, and he has advanced the work of Emil Durkheim. Born of poor Jewish immigrant parents from Eastern Europe, Merton has become one of the leading proponents of structural functionalism and influential figures in modern sociology. His contributions have sparked research on deviant behavior or studies of criminality. He proposed anomie to be a situation in which societies inadvertently bring to bear pressure or strain on individuals that can lead to rule-breaking behavior. It can be caused by the discrepancy between culturally defined goals and the institutionalized means available to achieve these goals. Merton also identifies 5 modes of adaptation: conformity, innovation, retreatism, ritualism, and rebellion. Anomie in education has been brought out clearly, and one of the theory is that relates events in wider worlds, work, general socialization of males and females to individual choices, and shows how wider social structures influence such choices. Lot of limitations and criticism were over the theory in which they project this limitation to theory of crime that have been identified, and which highlights that not all crimes are understandable using Merton's theory. Theory was unable to explain youth crimes that are often engaged in for social status rather than material acquisition, and the phenomenon of white-collar crime. The theory does not account for the middle and upper class who commit crimes, and it was not able to identify why people in almost identical social situations differ in their reaction to the feelings of helplessness. We can say that Merton's theory of anomie and deviant behavior has not been tested adequately. There were some oversimplified tests which involve the relationship between crime and social class, or between crime and the discrepancy between aspirations, expectations, but they ignore both structural and social psychological aspects of the theory. These tests ignore the important role of the mode of adaptation as an influence on the type and frequency of illegal behavior. In one of the recent studies, a careful review of Merton's writing on anomie theory is used to construct a more complete and rigorous test of the theory of respondents in early, middle, and late adolescence. Thus, Merton's theory of anomie is widely applied for any abnormal behavior or deviation from social norms in different areas such as education, crime, psychological issues,